Hi everyone, so Star Wars for the week, and I actually did the video previously, and I accidentally erased the video, so I couldn't upload it, so I'm redoing the video. And in this video, we are just because I don't feel like talking about the supposed leaked footage for the Last Jedi trailer, that marketing image with Rey, Finn, and Poe with Rey and the long hair. There's not really anything to talk about with that. So I'm just doing a video right off the top of my head. And we're talking about a question that was actually posed on Screen Junkie's Movie Fights at one point. The greatest swordsman in Star Wars. Now, when we talk about swordsman, when they argued that, I didn't like the argument that I think they agreed with Palpatine. I don't know. You could rewatch the episode. Palpatine, because he just do Order 66. Like, what does that have to do with him being a swordsman? Ordering Order 66 has nothing to do with his abilities as a swordsman, as a lightsaber duelist. So, when thinking about this, we're only using characters in the current canon. So no Knights of the Old Republic and nothing from the Legends lores, basically. And we're taking out Force augmentation from the equation. Because Force augmentation helps you with your skills, absolutely. It's why Yoda and Dooku and Sidious can move the way they do at their age. You take that out of the equation, yeah, they might still have the skill, but if they don't have the actual physical ability to back up that skill at that point, then it's a moot point how much you actually know. So, and yeah, now let's be clear. If we are taking into consideration actual Force augmentation, it'd either be Sidious, Yoda, or Vader. I think that would just be the given. But taking out Force augmentation, who do I think are the greatest duelists, and who do I think is the greatest swordsman in the Star Wars history? And again, taking out Force augmentation, all that. So honestly, I'm going to say right now, Dooku, Yoda, and Palpatine, despite probably being in good shape for their ages, I'm taking out of the equation because, like in Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine just flings himself with the Force. If he didn't have the Force, that would be stupid. He couldn't do that, and therefore he would probably get owned by all three of them. He might be skilled as hell. He's one of the most skilled duelists ever, but yeah, no, without the Force, that fight probably wouldn't have gone so well in his favor. So, right off the bat, I'm going to say Darth Maul is one of the most skilled, pure, physical swordsmen, or physical duelists of the canon of Star Wars. Now, we don't know how his fight with Obi-Wan in Rebels is going to go down, if he actually does end up dying, or if he ends up living to fight another day, and maybe he's Snoke. Unlikely. But what we can say is because he's a Zabrakian, or he's Zabrak, he's already physically a very powerful, pain-resistant warrior race. Yeah, forgive me, my arm still hurts from work. It's going to take a couple days for my arm to actually heal up. But he's more capable of dishing out punishment. In terms of pure lightsaber dueling capability, he's skilled enough to contend with a decently skilled Jedi Padawan and a Jedi Master in the form of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. When you literally look at that fight, the only reason Obi-Wan was able to win is because he was able to tap into a little bit of the dark side, use his aggression flip, and catch Darth Maul unawares. Otherwise, Darth Maul was dominating both him and Qui-Gon in that entire fight. So, it's hard to argue that. And even in the Clone Wars series, where him and Palpatine initially went toe-to-toe, again, Palpatine has to augment himself with the Force due to his old age. But, he's so skilled in the dark side, it doesn't, burn him out or anything like that. But even after he killed Maul's brother, Maul was able to actually push Palpatine back, actually put Palpatine on the defensive for a time, and then Palpatine whipped out his other Force abilities, and then that ended the way that ended. But yeah, I mean, Palpatine won that fight by the way of actual Force ability, not by the way of dueling skill. So, I mean, had the fight actually continued, would Maul have actually beaten Palpatine in the long haul, in terms of dueling capability? Maybe. He is the younger and the more physically fit, the more spry of the two. But yeah, I mean, Maul is a capable martial artist, fighter, and duelist all around. Next, I'd say Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is another very skilled duelist. He's even stated to not be superbly... I mean, he's Force sensitive, he's strong with the Force, but in terms of other Force users like Yoda, Windu, Qui-Gon, even Luke, he's a lot more subtle with his Force abilities. Like, he can use the Jedi mind tricks, subtle manipulation with telekinesis, all that. So he had to fine tune his Force capability. He didn't have a good Force wall or anything. What he made up for, though, was just pure lightsaber combat. I mean, he was able to stonewall Anakin and able to take out the four-armed, lightning-fast Grievous, because his style was, I believe, Sarisa, which is the third form, this defensive style. And yeah, I mean, really look at, say, a really good example is his fight with Anakin. He completely and utterly stonewalled Anakin. Anakin, despite, getting like a good force choke on him at one point, force wall, never really landed a hit on Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan was able to use his environment to his advantage. He's a brilliant tactician and improviser. So, yeah, his skills probably diminished, when we got to A New Hope and probably in Clone Wars. I mean, his Force capabilities are probably far exceeded his dueling capabilities once he got to that age, because that's what he was focusing on. But overall, Obi-Wan was definitely one of the most skilled duelists of his time. And then we get to my last two. Now, the last two, not last two, but again, Dooku, and Palpatine, and Yoda really only expressed their true capabilities when using Force augmentation. I'm sure they still knew everything they knew, but without the ability to augment their physical being with the Force, they were old people with lightsabers at that point. And maybe they were fit for their age, but they were at a disadvantage against the younger individuals. But Grievous was skilled, but he lost to Obi-Wan. Right off the bat, he lost to Obi-Wan fair and square. No Force capabilities needed for that fight. So right off the bat, Grievous, despite being a famed Jedi killer, a very dangerous opponent, not the most skilled duelist in the Star Wars history. Mace Windu, bar none, next to Yoda, was considered probably the best duelist in the Jedi Order, and that goes to show when he was able to go literally toe to toe, bit for bit, and end up coming on top. Granted, you can make the argument Palpatine through the fight with Darth Sidious Palpatine. Granted, there's Force augmentation. There's his Vapad feeding off the dark side of Sidious. But the point remains, he's able to go toe-to-toe with probably the most skilled duelist, or one of the most skilled lightsaber duelists of that modern age. Then you look at his duels in the Clone Wars, things along those lines, and yeah, he was without a doubt, he's the only one in the Order to actually use Form 7 openly, because he's the only one who could really use it effectively. Even Yoda didn't use the form, even though from what I understand, he actually knew the form. But yeah, Windu, and now great, he lost to Anakin only because Anakin, blindsided him. Could he have beaten Anakin? I firmly believe he could have beaten Anakin. Could he have beaten someone like Dooku, who was one of the most famed duelists of his era? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends. Dooku was a pure, well, not pure. He used Samataru and stuff like that, but he was a pure Makashi, the second form, the duelist fencing style, and he was a true and form master of that style. So could he have beaten Dooku? Who knows? But Windu was by far one of the most skilled duelists of his time. And then we get to the later trilogy, Vader and Luke. Luke's not one of the greatest duelists, at least by the time of Return of the Jedi, he's not one of the greatest duelists ever, period. The reason he won this fight with Vader is, one, he tapped into the dark side. Granted, he was handling himself a lot better in that fight than he did in the Episode 5 fight in Empire, but Luke was definitely more in control, but Vader was in turmoil at that point, struggling with his love for his son and the dark side. Had Vader been full-on Empire Vader, no, I don't think Luke could have won that fight. Even if Luke did tap into the dark side, I don't think Luke would have won that. That's just the case. I think Vader, at least between the two, was the far more skilled individual, particularly when you see, it's been out now for 13 weeks? The scene in Rogue One, and then how you see him actually, and we're not talking about the New Hope, that's just tap, tap, tap. But when you see his actual fight in Empire, he is literally just toying. He's like a cat playing with a mouse at that point. He gives Luke false sense of hope. He knows how to psychologically manipulate his opponent. Yeah, he's chaining his Force abilities in with the whole fight and stuff like that, but because of his cybernetics, he doesn't need to use the Force if he doesn't have to. The only time he needs to use the Force in a lightsaber duel for his physical enhancement when he's got to actually move fast and when he needs to. But you look at his forces, his style is a combination of so many different styles. He uses, I think, a refined version of the Form 5, the aggressive style, combination of Makashi, the fencer style. He also has a lot of Sorisu in there for defensive because he needs to be able to protect his cybernetics. And then Nimon goes in there with his chaining his force abilities. He knows Juyo, the 7th style. He knows pretty much all the styles, plus he mixed and matched them together to create a whole mess of different styles. He's one of the most refined duelists of the entire original trilogy or their first 6 movies. And Kylo's not. I mean, we've barely seen enough of Kylo to really call him a duelist or not. I mean, he's good for what he's got. Especially since he has to use a very double-edged sword, if you a broken crystal blade with vent ports that, when training, you can avoid being hit by your own vent ports. But if you're not careful, you could have been hit. So that being said, who do I think is the most skilled duelist out of all of these? Obi-Wan comes in at number 4 because, yeah, if we're talking about pure skill, yeah, he can stonewall just about anyone, but unless he's able to pinpoint the weakness in an opponent, I don't see him as the true greatest swordsman in the world. I think he would lose. Obi-Wan in his prime versus Vader in his prime, I think he'd lose to Vader. I think he'd still lose to Windu, because Windu's mastered all the styles, whereas and I do mean mastered all the styles, whereas Obi-Wan just mastered the third. And I think Maul would actually upsert him, not just in a lightsaber combat, and we're talking about both these guys in their prime physically, just in terms of their dueling capabilities. I think Maul honestly would upsert his defense with offense plus physical skill. But that comes to number 3. I think Maul's the third skill because, yes, he's a master duelist, but it comes more as a whole package where his martial skill is highly formidable. And while I think he's more skilled than Obi-Wan, I don't think he's, in terms of pure swordsmanship, more skilled than someone like Windu or Vader. I think maybe in terms of as a warrior, he's more skilled than Windu or Obi-Wan, but as an actual swordsman, I think he only falls in the number 3 spot. Number 2, I think, goes to Mace Windu. Mace Windu, I think, was the master, or pretty much the master swordsman overall of the Jedi Order next to Yoda. But again, that's because Yoda, when we augmented his Force capabilities and how strong he was in the Force, was just a tiny little green tornado of terror. But Windu, bar none, was one of the most skilled duelists of his time, capable of being a Jedi, capable of mastering all 7 forms, being the only one to really use the 7th form, says a lot about your skill as an individual. And going toe-to-toe and coming out on top with Palpatine, again, you can argue if he threw the fight or not, that's fine. I would say that he is one of the most skilled duelists ever. But I have to give it to Vader. Vader, I think, is the most skilled lightsaber duelist, just pure duelist, that we have seen in the series, the canon lore, including the comics, things along those lines, period. Because he's not only been able to take on Luke, no problem, and Obi-Wan, no problem, back at those times, Obi-Wan threw the fight. That being said, I don't think Obi-Wan at that point could have actually taken on Vader. He also is famed as a notorious Jedi killer. He's gone up against so many Jedi and killed them dead, either with Force abilities or just in pure Jedi, lightsaber combat. He is probably the most skilled individual with his blended styles, his hybrid styles, his ruthlessness, his overall physical presence and skill and intimidation. Psychology plays a lot in these fights too. So, yeah, I think I honestly gotta say Vader is probably the most skilled swordsman of the Star Wars current canon. But let me know what you think. If you think there's something different, let me know. Put it in the comments below. Always great to hear your opinions. Obviously, I'm not going into the non-canon like Knights of Old Republic, because if we're going Knights of Old Republic, I would have gone, like, say, Revan was probably one of, if not the most skilled duelist of his time. And you can make the argument that Malak, his cohort, it was more skilled. They even said that he was more skilled and Revan could beat him because of a combination of force use and lightsaber skill. And then there's Bane, and then there's Dark Zabrath, or Nihilus is another one. There's a lot of them in the Legends and other continuity. But yeah, no, let me know what you think. Put in the comments below. Back in a little bit with my actual magic video for the day. And Get Out will be the review tonight. Don't know if Mark will join me for that, but we'll see if he will join me. As always, if you have an idea for who would win, what if, Star Wars, superhero, magic, anything else in between, let me know. Put it in the comments below. I'll get to it at some point and put it on a list. Take suggestions, like to make you guys feel a part of stuff. Do I have anything else for the week? I got review for Dragon Ball Super episode 80 on Saturday, and the box office and Oscars will be on Sunday. So keep your eyes out for that. But thanks for watching. See you later.